who could step up and challenge Clemson? Now, to this point, the only answers have been outside of the ACC. So I'm not talking about Ohio State or Georgia or Oklahoma, Alabama. I'm talking about, is there anyone in the ACC now or 2, 3, 4 years in the future that we see potentially putting together a challenge to Clemson right now? Because it's Clemson, and then there is, I don't know how to accurately describe the width of the gap. There's a very, very, very sizable gap between Clemson and whoever is number 2. But I'll tell you where there's not a sizable gap, and that's the gap between 2 and 3. Because your guess is as good as mine right now as to who holds those spots down. So there's one question, that's who could quickly ascend to number 2? And there are a number of candidates I'm going to point out, but then who could ascend from 2 to 1? That's a little bit different bridge, and I don't think we're crossing that one tonight. I will tell you this, though. I'm willing to buy into North Carolina. I'm willing to take him seriously for a number of reasons. I doubted that Mack Brown was ever going to get back into coaching at the D1 level. I thought Mack Brown was going to be a guy to take over maybe one of the major Texas high school programs, and that would have been fun to watch too. He takes over North Carolina, and he's got it figured out. He's holding down sort of that quasi-CEO, let me hire a legit staff role, and then also let me hire a staff that can recruit lights out. How lights out? Well, we're not talking basketball, guys. North Carolina football currently has, per the 24/7 Sports team rankings, the number 4 class in the 2021 cycle. Yes, we're frozen right now. It's a dead period. Everyone's quarantined, and we still got a long way to go until National Signing Day, early signing period, and regular signing day. North Carolina's recruiting very well. And Barton Simmons, I saw him put up a piece on 24/7 Sports earlier today talking about the different dynamic in recruiting right now. And for the Tar Heels, they got a loaded in-state crop. And I think all but 1 or 2 of their current commits that are rated 4 or 5 stars are from the state of North Carolina. So they're doing a really, really good job in state. It's one of the most underrated states in recruiting. I don't know why in the world more people don't hone in on North Carolina, but whatever. It's not Mack Brown's problem because they're getting it done right now. They are set at quarterback. Here's what's really important. They're recruiting well, but they're set at quarterback. Right now, they've got Sam Howell entering what will be his true sophomore season, but they also flipped Drake May, elite 2021 quarterback who was committed to Alabama, no longer. Now he's flipped to North Carolina. It's always important to get these guys on board early because they are the cornerstones of your recruiting class, not to mention what they can do on the field for you when they actually get on campus and end up playing. Elite players gravitate towards the elite quarterbacks, offensive and defensive guys. As for FSU and Miami, I don't know how anyone in the FSU or in the Miami fan bases, I hear from you guys a lot, but I'm asking you, just be honest with me. If you had to take your paycheck and put it on the line right now, and I told you over under 2.5 seasons before you're capable of beating Clemson, either straight up on the field, regular season, or in the ACC title game, where are you putting your actual money? What are you saying to me? You saying you're going to be there in 2.5 years? I'm not saying definitively you won't be. I'm saying I have no confidence in saying you will be, and that's why I'm still in wait-and-see mode with FSU or Miami. Now, I'll tell you one that's way off the radar. I did a video, I think this time last year, about Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's in left field right now. They're not even on the fringes of this conversation, and I'll grant you that. I think they will be, because I love Georgia Tech's coaching staff, really like Jeff Collins. I love more so than anything that they get how Georgia Tech football should be branded. They came in and immediately, of course, you're coming off the Paul Johnson era, and you're in a position, I lived an hour south of Atlanta, but I would listen to and consume Atlanta media on the regular. Georgia Tech was a complete non-factor in their own city. And think about it's not Bessemer, Alabama. It's not Ozark. It's Atlanta, Georgia. So the capital of the South, a city that has accurately marketed itself as the capital of college football. You got the College Football Hall of Fame there. You got the SEC Championship there. You got a ton of recruits there. It's the intersection of the SEC and the ACC. And you had a D1 program. You got an FBS program, a Power 5 program right there in the heart of downtown Atlanta, and no one even talks about him up there. So that was the first thing you had to change, and Jeff Collins has started to do that. Now it's a complete roster rebuild. They're going to be 2 years into it right now. I think because of the number of returning starters that they will have this coming season, combined with the fact that no one will have had any spring practice time, conditioning time is going to be limited. Told you this a couple of shows ago. I think some team like Georgia Tech, just from the sheer benefit of having a bunch of returning starters, could be uniquely positioned to pop some people that maybe they wouldn't be expected to pop early. But the other thing you can do at Georgia Tech is you can take what people call a weakness for you, and that's academics, and academics being the standard being as lofty as it is at Tech, turn it into your advantage. David Shaw did this at Stanford. Why in the world can't you? If you can get kids into Notre Dame and you can get kids into Stanford, just figure out a way to do it in Atlanta. I know, because I went down this road last year and I had a lot of really, really sharp folks from Georgia Tech explain to me exactly what the admissions process is and how we don't bend for football. And I know that. I understand. I'm not ignorantly talking about this. What I'm telling you is when you've got as many elite kids in the Southeast and the ability to recruit nationally because of the brand of Georgia Tech in the engineering program, when you've got all that, you don't have to sign 100 kids per year. You got to sign 25 or thereabouts per year. You can find 25 per year that meet those standards and can play ball. And once you start to trend up, then all of a sudden, people don't look at you as an afterthought or a fallback option. People look at you and say, oh, you mean I can go there and get a world-class education and I can compete for an ACC championship and therefore put myself in the college football playoff conversation. You shake your head at that right now because Georgia Tech hasn't been that new generation. I don't shake my head at it because if history has shown us anything, it's that if you get stuff figured out, it doesn't take long. It's not a 4 or 5 year process anymore. With the way that transfers work and with the way that the game has become so quarterback-centric and what one superstar quarterback can do for you, you get that in the door at Georgia Tech. Watch and see. But the biggest hurdle for Clemson, despite everything I just said, is, and in the foreseeable future, will always be Clemson. And here's what I mean. I think Clemson, there is such a gap that they have detached themselves from their conference right now. And I feel that the biggest thing they have to guard against, and so far it has not been a problem for them, to the immense credit of that coaching staff, the biggest thing you have to guard against anytime you start getting success at a program like Clemson, drop my pen, that's fine, I don't need to draw anyway. Clemson is not, or was not rather, this national power where that tiger paw was synonymous with like the Notre Dame logo and the Ohio State logo. Now, it means everything to Clemson, folks, and that's wonderful. All I mean when I say that is Clemson football 10 years ago didn't move the needle a whole lot in the state of California. Well, now it does. And the reason it does is not because people in Calabasas, California, all of a sudden became privy to the magic that is Clemson, South Carolina, like you guys know it to be. They want to come there because they can win and go to the NFL, just like they want to go to any other powerhouse. So that's a good thing for Clemson. That's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. But what you have to guard against is the blueprint and the identity of Clemson football. Everyone can see this on display every time they play. The identity and blueprint that they've used to get to the mountaintop has been a program full of kids with a what can I do for Clemson mentality. That's the way they play. That's the way they've built and branded themselves, and good for them. But now, when you get kids coming in from all over the country, I'm not saying it will happen because I don't think it has yet. The only thing you have to guard against, one of the consequences of success, becomes going from a locker room full of kids that say, what can I do for Clemson, to maybe kids from all 4 corners of the country and everywhere in between coming in and saying, I'm here, what can Clemson do for me? Where does that manifest itself? Well, it manifests itself when, for example, you are driving in a national championship game and you got precious few seconds left on the clock and you need intangible things to go your way. And you maybe need kids that weren't rated 5 stars coming out of high school to just come through, grit their teeth, and show up for you. You never know. When you don't have the exact right combination of mentality in your locker room, all those intangibles that have to fall into place, you never know how it manifests itself on the field to cost you when you would least expect it. That's the biggest hurdle for Clemson. As much as I may believe in the future of North Carolina, Georgia Tech, I'm willing to take a flyer on, FSU and Miami, I pray that they get their act together. They're not catching Clemson without some help from Clemson.